most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far. The sciences, each straining in its own direction, have hitherto harmed us little, but someday the piecing together of disassociated knowledge will open up such terrifying vistas of reality and of our frightful position therein that we shall either go mad from the revelation or flee from the deadly light into the peace and safety of a new dark age. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to 20th Century Geek Reviews. Now that there was the opening paragraph of the great H.P. Lovecraft's The Call of Cthulhu, taken in this case from the complete fiction of H.P. Lovecraft, a fantastic oversized hard edition in a wonderful slipcase. Now, not going to go about the book, but I want to talk about Lovecraft. If anything, actually, I want to talk about Lovecraftian. I want to talk about, give you the top 5, my top 5 Lovecraftian films. Now, I'm not talking about Lovecraft adapts or remakes, so no Herbert West Reanimators, no The Resurrected, no From Beyond. I'm going to talk about films that are Lovecraftian in their essence. You won't be able to find a direct relation to a story, but they are there. You know, the Lovecraftianness is there in their DNA. So we've got 5 films, and we'll give you that list. Okay, look at this. I'm ready. We'll start with an easy one. And what the thing we'll do, just so you know, is we're going to talk about the film very briefly, and then we're going to give you a couple of stories, a couple of Lovecraft stories. I think that if you like that film, you should really go back and check out, because I really think these are worth checking out. Okay, so 1982's The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing. One of his best films. An amazing special effects masterpiece. A suspense thriller for the ages. A group of men trapped in an Arctic science station. When they come across something trapped in the ice, that something breaks out, and it's an alien life form that can change shape to become anything, and it's a parasite really. And the suspense grows and the paranoia grows as each one has to turn on the other one to see who is not them anymore. Fantastic film. Kurt Russell, Keith David, Ernest Borgnine. I think Ernest Borgnine, maybe wrong. Great film. Highly recommend it. But what films? Yeah, that's my first one. But what stories should you be going back and checking out if you like The Thing? So that's number 1. The Mountains of Madness. Now, the Mountains of Madness, again, an expedition goes to the Arctic and comes across links to an ancient civilization, and quite possibly the birth of the origin of our species. The second story is The Whisper in the Darkness, and this one again is about isolation and paranoia. It's about a man trapped on a farm and corresponding with a friend of his some distance away, and that paranoia of not knowing, is it really him he's talking to, and what's out there in the darkness that keeps distracting him. Fantastic story, really good story. But so if you like The Thing, the first of our Lovecraftian films, check out At the Mountains of Madness, which is novella length. It's not long, but just so you know, this is Lovecraft. He was writing in the 20s and 30s, and it's not the most easygoing to read, but they are hugely rewarding. Okay, film number 2, 1967's Quatermass and the Pit. Now, before everyone goes, what? Yes, this isn't a total monster fest. This isn't dark tentacles and that kind of thing, but this is in that vein of The Thing again. During the excavation of an underground tube station in London in the 60s, the crew come across several things. They start to just talk about having headaches and bits and pieces. And they come across something, skeletons, and when they unearth those skeletons, they have to form with long elongated heads, and eventually they find a spacecraft, and they find the spacecraft is almost 5 million years old, and these skeletons could be even older. And again, it's that thing that, like, could it possibly be that life on this planet, human life on this planet, was actually started elsewhere in the universe? Excellent film. Excellent film. Really, really enjoy that one. because of the influences from time and this sort of thing, and the alienness of this, there's true aliens in this, in Quatermass and the Pit. I really thought the best one to it would be The Shadow Out of Time. The Shadow Out of Time is a fantastic story of a man who, through a device, an alien device, is able to transfer himself to other planets, and sort of ends up sort of seeing how these other beings live and how they would have if they have influenced other things in the universe. It's an amazing story. One of his later ones, really strong, but The Shadow Out of Time, fantastic stuff. Going back and talking about this idea of madness and this idea of sort of paranoia, everything we talked about, which seems an underlying of Lovecraftianness, is 1994's In the Mouth of Madness. That's right, we're going back to John Carpenter. The man clearly liked Lovecraft. What can we say? But in The Mouth of Madness, Sam Neill plays an insurance investigator, and he's asked to track down an author called Sutter Kane, who his publishers believe he's gone mad. But Sutter Kane believes that he is actually in contact with elder beings, elder gods, that are giving his words power, and that he can actually influence the very fabric of reality. That almost he has taken on a godlike essence, or a godlike level of power, and it slowly starts to drive Sam Neill mad. And especially as the madness sort of spreads from that, because people start to read the Sutter Kane books. Do you read Sutter Kane? Good film, great film. So the first one I've really thought about for this, and about that sort of level of insanity and the confusion, and again that sort of disassociation from reality, is The Dreams in the Witch House. This is a very weird story, and it's a story of a gentleman who spends some time with a witch in a house. It has a character in it that has the body of a rat and the face of a person. It has druids. It has links to In the Mouth of Madness. At the Mountains of Madness, certain beings appear again. And it's all this thing of like, is it a dream? Is it reality? Is he seeing something? Perception, in perceiving things he can't perceive, or other people don't seem to perceive. And the other one is one of my favourites, possibly one of my favourites Lovecraftian films. But again, it's that thing of someone being sent somewhere, or accidentally going somewhere, and then being manipulated by the local people or the local scenario. And that's The Shadow over Innsmouth. Gentleman again goes to Innsmouth and finds that this place has a history linked with underwater beings, mer people almost, and how he's affected and they've been bred into them, and how he is then sort of cajoled and manipulated by circumstance and the people in the town to almost become another victim. That's such a good story, such a good story, terrifying. Some new ones, they're classics, right? They are my classics, standard classics. But in the last couple of years, there's been a couple that have really jumped out at me. And the reason I'm doing this video is actually because of one of these films, and we'll talk about it now. It was Cold Skin from 2017, and it's a story of a man who's sort of a lighthouse keeper in the arse end of nowhere, an island in some sort of barren waste, and another person who is then placed there to literally track speed, wind and direction for a year. That's their job, for some purpose, some scientific endeavour. Never really explained. But the fact is that every night they are attacked by pretty much the people that would possibly instigated the Shadow over Innsmouth, these underwater beings, and every night they have to fight them off. And it's this level of sort of like of despair, and sort of clutching onto your sanity when you are so alone in the middle of nowhere and having to survive. And what do you do in that? How do you turn? What kind of man do you become in those scenarios when you realise that the world you knew, that you thought you had a grasp on, is completely wrong? Fantastic film, great film. It's on Netflix at the moment. I highly recommend it. And the stories, I'd say, if you like Cold Skin or like the idea of that, check out Dagon. The Dagon's a very early Lovecraft story of a gentleman who, after a sort of shipwreck or an incident, comes across a piece of land, an area of land, an island that has literally sort of grown up out of the ocean. And during his travels across this small island, sees evidence of an underwater civilization and gods and all these other things, and Dagon being that sort of like, you know, chief god of these underwater people. A great early entry, very short actually, it's quite short, but it's a great story. And the second story is one called The Temple. Now this is a lesser known Lovecraft story, but it's a really, really good one. And it's told from the perspective of a stranded German U-boat captain, which sounds unusual when you think about it, but it's a fantastic story. He starts to go slowly mad, that they're sort of trapped underwater, they can't do certain things, and the people around him go mad. And it's all about, the story itself is very much about, ironically or not for being in Germany, but the purity of his being, and these other people around him being mad. And there's some rather sort of sketchy language used in it, but you know, not exactly right. It's part of the character. It's not that he's being racist so much as being he sort of sees himself as a pure German sort of thing for the mother country. It's really weird. But anyway, as he goes mad, more and more mad, he finds that there's been a small idol has been brought on board, and it seems to be the downfall of everyone on the boat. It brings a lot of bad luck, but it also acts as a beacon and has them travel to this underwater sunken civilization, and they're all sort of influenced by it. And the main character is slowly driven mad by the isolation and by the influence of this idol and this civilization around. Again, Lovecraft building that sort of despair and that tension is fantastic. Great story. So if you like Cold Skin, check out Dagon and the Temple. And the last one is a really weird one. It was a horror film that came out a couple of years ago, and it's so 80s like Lovecraft. It's very much associated. I could link it with From Beyond or West Reanimator or you know, the Stuart Gordon sort of school of Lovecraft making. That's The Void, and The Void is. It's hard to describe because you enter almost like a third of the way into the story, and then you get like Act 2 and 3, and it's all about, again, they're trapped in a hospital. There are tentacle monsters, there are cultists, there are vistas of dark infinity and other planes of reality. It's weird. It's a really weird film, and I love it. I think it's an amazing film. The special effects are fantastic in it. And it's a film that sort of, once you've watched it, your brain is going to tell you, I'm not sure what we watched, but I know it was dark and I know it was bad. But when you go back and watch it again, it sort of clicks in more and more. And the more you read of Lovecraft as well, the more you can see into sort of some of his cosmic horror, this cosmic dread that he has created. It sort of fits together and it works. So The Void. Highly recommended. 2016, The Void, great film. But if you like that, I recommend The Horror at Red Hook. Again, sort of written, I think, whilst Lovecraft was spending time in New York, or just after his time in New York. It's not his strongest story, I'll be honest, and there's some of Lovecraft's racial overtones are in it. So if you can get past that, it's not bad. But it has elements in it that are this idea of an alternative or a larger vista of reality, a larger plane of existence, it literally existing under our feet, is fantastic. It's a really good thing, this idea of a normal town or some incident in a town, small incident, being the cover-up of a larger terror. And it harkens back to original sin and all this other stuff. It's a really interesting story. It's a mystery as well. It sort of has echoes of Poe and that idea of mystery. So it's worth checking out. But the final one, if you like The Void, and the reason I'm going to say this is because the cultist element and the weirdness that goes with it is The Call of Cthulhu. Now, in this day and age, everyone sees Cthulhu plushy dolls or Cthulhu statues or Cthulhu and everything. Cthulhu, or Cthulhu, however you want to say it. But Cthulhu has become a relatively mainstream figure of pop culture, and especially in horror pop culture. And I often see him depicted. I don't think he's depicted correctly. The way he's described in the book, you see him as a large, muscular, monster. which really isn't how he's described in the book. I mean, you know, he's actually described much as it's said here. He's a blubbery mass with a tentacle octopus face and all this other stuff. But this is a story of a story within a story in many cases of cultists being influenced by the psychic powers of a waking god or a waking elder being and all this other stuff. It's a fantastic story. It's a really good sort of much how like Dracula or even like Carrie really was told this idea. It's sort of like someone digging into a story that then reveals another story. So you know, it's done through like diaries and police reports and sort of thing. It's collected together to form a story. It's I think it's three. One of the points in that opening paragraph it says is our inability to bring information together to show the bigger picture. If we keep it in our little chunks, we're quite happy with that because we can deal with those. But when you put it all together and you found this bigger picture, it becomes truly terrifying. And that's what the story of the Call of Cthulhu is really about. It's three weird stories, three weird tales that if looked at individually, you just go, meh, that's a little bit weird. But if you put them together, you find a bigger picture that all links into this one event. And it's amazing. It's a really good book. It's a really good story. So it's well worth it. It's the one that sort of stands out, I think, of all of Lovecraft's work for some reason. I think there are better stories. I honestly think The Shadow of Innsmouth is possibly one of his best. It's influenced here. But I do recommend, if you like these films, The Thing, 1982, Quatermass and the Pit, 1967, In the Mouth of Madness, 1994, The Void, 2016, and Cold Skin, 2017. Check them out. If you're a fan of Lovecraft, you probably already watched these, but if you haven't, check them out. They are amazing. And let me know in the comments below, what other Lovecraftian films do you think there are? And which ones do you like? Which stories do you like of Lovecraft? I'm sure I haven't mentioned so many. You know, there's, I'll say hundreds, not hundreds, but there are tens of stories that he's written. And I want to know, let me know in the comments below, what's your favourite Lovecraft story? What's your favourite Lovecraftian film? What's your favourite Lovecraft film? You know, From Beyond, Herbert West, Resurrected, all those kind of things. Thank you very much. And don't forget, if you like what you're seeing, subscribe up above. We've got a podcast as well. The 20th Century Geek is everywhere. Boom! We're not just on there. You don't get to look at my pretty face. You get to hear my dulcet tones as well on the podcast. 20th Century Geek. We're on iTunes and every other podcast catcher. So please go check us out. If you want to talk to us, not just here, but on social media, find us on Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram, at 20th Century Geek across the lot. You'll find us. We've got a website, we've got everything. Check us all out. We're all over the place. But thank you for watching, and may Azasoth be with you.